Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Bitly Expert webinar session. Today, we're going to be talking about webhooks, which is a very exciting topic for us. It's March 23rd, 2020, and it's now 2:30 Eastern Time, so we are ready to get started. All right, so a quick agenda for today's webinar. We're going to start out with introductions. I'm going to introduce myself and the experts you're going to hear on the session today. Then we'll talk a little bit about Bitly, our vision and mission, and then we'll dive into this expert webinar agenda. We're going to be talking about webhooks. What are they? Why are they important, and how can they be useful? What do I need to set one up? And then we're actually going to be able to do a live demo inside of Bitly and with a partner of ours to talk about how to set up that webhook. And just like with all of our Bitly Learning webinars, this is a live session with your experts, and we are accepting our Q&A is live and open the entire session. So if you have questions already about webhooks, you can feel free to pop them into that Q&A at any time, and we will address those towards the end of the session. All right, so quick introductions here. My name is Hannah Stone. I'm a customer training specialist at Bitly headquarters in New York. And my job today is moderating this webinar and answering and facilitating your questions towards the end of our session. So I do want to have our two experts introduce themselves as well. So we'll start with Kelsey.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelsey Stevenson. I am the Director of Product here at Bitly, and I work very closely with our integrations team.
Thanks, Hannah. I'm Tony Roma. I'm the technical writer over at Bitly. I handle all the words in the product and in our documentation.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So what is Bitly? Let's talk briefly about our vision and mission statements. So first, the Bitly vision is every link a Bitly link. We want to see Bitly used across every corner of the internet. We know we click and swipe and tap hundreds of times a day, and we think those links can be harnessed. Which really brings us to our mission statement, which is to educate the world about how links drive business results. Now, the business results that we can drive with webhooks are super, super high value. And a session like this is how we bring the word to you about them, how to use them, and educate not just you, but everybody who is on your team, and talk about how we can bring those results to you via webhooks especially. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our expert. So Kelsey's going to start off here and talk to us about webhooks.
Yes. So as Hannah mentioned earlier, we are going to talk about what are webhooks, and then we're going to talk about the impact and how they can be useful to you. And then we'll go on to a demo after looking at what we need to set one up. So what are webhooks?
Yeah,
Tony,
so there are, I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump in, Kelsey. There are two ways applications can communicate with each other to share information: polling and webhooks. Polling is when an outside system checks in with Bitly through our API and asks, hey, did someone click my link? But it's repeated over and over again. When you're sending thousands or millions of links every day, as some of our customers do, polling can slow things down. It can cause degraded performance or cause errors around rate limits. As you can imagine, there's lots of activity going on there. It's like explaining money to a 5-year-old kid while you're paying a cashier. By the time they ask you why for the 10th time, you're probably having trouble focusing on how much change you're supposed to get. And this is why we introduced webhooks, the polling thing, not the kid. Instead of repeatedly checking in with Bitly, you set up a webhook. The outside application waits for an update, and Bitly monitors for certain things like a click, and Bitly will notify your application when those things happen, and only when they happen. So you have one instruction, Bitly, tell me when a customer clicks my links, and Bitly follows through with every click. Hey, someone clicked your link, and here's some information about it. So you sent the kid to college, and the only time you hear from them is when they need cash.
Yes, and technically speaking, for the developers or some of our technical audience out there, webhooks are user-defined callbacks made with HTTPS or HTTP. So Bitly supports API key and HTTP basic auth for posting the webhook. And you'll need to post the query parameter as part of the callback URL. We've got some examples of this on our developer site, dev.bitly. So you can refer to that as you're setting one up. As far as the responses, Bitly sends webhook responses formatted in JSON over HTTP or HTTPS as a post request. We'll send the payload to the URL that you enter into your account settings, which we'll show you in a bit. And within that JSON response, you can expect the date and time of the click, the bitlink ID or that short link and the associated data with it, the original long URL, and the country where the link was clicked. So now moving on to, all right, now I know what webhooks are, but why are they important and how are they useful to me? Webhooks deliver real-time data triggered and sent by events. So applications can register for those events and receive those notifications when they occur, as Tony had just explained to us. And some of the technical benefits that we see here, they are well understood, familiar concept. They're in a standard format in JSON with post requests, and they decrease the time to integrate. Another thing I want to stress is that they are a lightweight way to get real-time data. As we mentioned before, if you are sending millions of links and relying on click data for your use case, which is very common for customers who are using our API or even customers who are using the web app, polling with our API can result in degraded performance and often hitting rate limits that aren't clear to you. So webhooks is a much more performant and lightweight way to retrieve that click data that you're looking for.
Yeah, so when you start using something like webhooks, you're going to unlock new use cases. You're going to learn through the new tool, through the flexibility of it, how to plug this information into your systems. Probably the most common use is automating your workflows. So you might create a ticket in Zendesk when a customer clicks a link for support. You might update customer information in Salesforce when someone clicks a link in an SMS message. And you can even do more complex things like, when there are 100 clicks registered in this link in Europe, notify my application so that my marketing team can follow through. And you can just get more helpful data. Many companies that use SMS have told us that customer engagement is kind of a black box through the SMS process. It's hard to track if that outreach is working. And it's unlike email, where you can get every detail of customer engagement, like clicks and opens. SMS doesn't offer the same level of insights unless you're using a bit.ly link, so it can be highly valuable with the information that's passed through. And with webhooks, you can see who clicked your link and when. And the things you'll need to set up a webhook, you'll see this as you set it up in bit.ly, and you'll have to understand what's happening on the other application's end as well. So you'll usually have an endpoint URL, and it's often called the callback URL. And this is where bit.ly sends that information. You'll probably need technical resources. So you'll need a developer who understands how these things operate under the hood, and then of course the application that you're connecting to. And you can use automation tools like Zapier, which process this information, comes into Zapier and then cranks out some process after it gets triggered. Yeah, so that's kind of the building blocks for how you get started.
Awesome. So now we're going to go into a live product demo where I will show you how to set up a webhook in bit.ly and use Zapier as the middleware or the automation tool, as Tony had mentioned, to create a notification in Slack every time someone clicks my link. Okay, so here I am logged into my bit.ly dashboard. And I'm going to navigate to organizational settings, which is where I will see webhooks. So I'm going to click webhooks, and I can see that I already have a couple set up. If you do not have any webhooks set up, and this is your first time navigating here, you will see this on the screen. So if I had not set one up, I would click add a webhook. I'm going to add a name to my webhook. I'll call it demo test. Then I'm going to need an endpoint URL. At this point, I'll put in the callback URL from my application if I'm a developer. Or if I'm not a developer and I'm not managing my own application, but I'm trying to build a workflow using something like Zapier, at this point, I will go to Zapier to retrieve that callback URL. So I'm logged into Zapier here. And if this is your first time here and you're not familiar with this tool, what you can do is navigate here to make a zap. And when you click that, you have a whole list of applications. For this one in particular, you're going to hit Webhooks by Zapier. It's a really great tool. It's flexible. It'll help you. So when I click here, then I'm going to choose my trigger event. So the way Zapier is helping me is they're building me when this happens, do this. So I'm going to build a workflow that is when this happens, and it's going to be when someone clicks my link, do this, notify me in Slack. So I'm going to click here and I'm actually going to hit catch a hook. And when I select catch a hook, it's going to wait for that post HTTPS request that's going to be sent from Bitly. Or I can hit catch a raw hook. So I select that and then I can add in my application here, which is going to be Slack. And then I can name it and I can go through all the parameters. Because I've already set one up and for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to go back to the one that's previously set up. So here I have catch a raw hook. And when I edit this, as you can see, this is what we were looking at before. And when I go to select a webhook, it shows me this webhook URL that I can copy and paste right here into Bitly. And once I've done that, then I can select a group. And this is really important. If you are an enterprise customer and you are creating links within groups, you can filter your webhooks to only notify when clicks are happen on links created under specific groups. So instead of all groups, I'm going to select Kels S, that is my enterprise company. And when I select an event to send, I currently have clicks available. In the future, there could be more events here, like please notify me whenever someone creates a link, etc. And then I have the option to have this activate immediately or not. Because I already have one set up, I'm going to cancel this. Had I created a new one, I would add the endpoint here. So cancel. And we'll go in and take a look at the webhook I have set up here. So again, that endpoint URL from Zapier and activate immediately. So I see the status here is active. It was updated by me 2 hours ago when I prepared for this webinar. And I have my name, group, and events. So now I'm going to navigate back to Zapier to finish setting up my flow. In terms of find data, this is populated automatically and it's going to show me what's available. Now I go to setting up Slack. And like I said, I've already done this, but I select my app. I choose for the event action to be sending me a direct message, although there are several other things you can set up based on your use case. I have logged in to my Bitly Slack account, and then I can customize the message. And this is where it gets pretty fun. So I can choose that to say that it's going to go to my message, and then the body is going to be the raw data, that JSON that we mentioned earlier with information about my click. And there are several other options you can do. So when you hit done editing, you can see it and then you can turn it on or you can turn it off. And for the purposes of this demo, I already have a link copy and pasted, but once I click it and put it into my browser, you will see a notification in my Slack. So I've clicked my link, I see a notification here, I'm going to navigate there. And just like that, Zapier has responded to my message with the hook from Bitly saying, someone clicked your link, and it's showing me the date and time, the URL of the long URL, the bit link, and the country, which is in the United States. So with that, I will pause and return to the webinar. All right, so that is it for the live product demo of using a webhook with some of our partners, Zapier and Slack. I will now move to our live Q&A portion.
Excellent. Kelsey, thank you so much. It's really cool to see those webhooks in action, and it seems like a really valuable tool. So we do have a couple of questions coming in. Again, anybody else who's listening in today, if you have questions from what we just talked about, or if you came prepared with any questions, now is the time. So first question here, what happens if there are errors? How will I know? That's a really great question. Kelsey, you want to take that one?
Absolutely. So Bitly will make multiple attempts to send the payload if the first attempt fails. And after failing multiple times, the webhook will be automatically deactivated and an email will be sent to the account administrators notifying you that there was a problem. There can be errors on either side, and if you're a developer and you've gone through this, you can imagine that that's totally normal. So we'll do our best to send multiple requests. But at the point where we are not, or where we are still getting an error, we'll just deactivate it, which will be, the status will be updated in the organizational settings as I showed, and then you'll get the email notifying you that there's a problem.
Okay, good to know. Another question we have as well, will you add more data to the JSON response for additional events?
That's a great question. So as you've noticed, the data that we are sending in the JSON response is a subset of the data that's available elsewhere on the Bitly product. We are looking at ways to add more. It will always be additive to the JSON so that it won't break any existing integrations that you have. And we are also looking to add additional events, as I kind of mentioned earlier. We don't yet have those planned on a roadmap, but we are looking to hear from our customers what events would be valuable from you so you can help guide our product development there.
Excellent. That can be some really valuable feedback. So we encourage anybody to reach out if you have things that you think would be useful. But of course, as we know, that click information that we currently have available in the JSON, there's so much that you can learn from that. All right, so third question we have coming in, what is the difference between using a webhook and calling analytics via the APIs? You know, of course, we have an endpoint that allows you to call information about a link. So what's really the difference between what you get from a webhook?
Another great question, and I will take that as well. So as I mentioned earlier, the data that's in the webhook response is a subset of the data available to you via our API today, or also web app. We recommend using webhooks over calling the API, especially if you are going to be in that high volume use case where you might run into rate limit errors, etc. Tony alluded to this earlier, but if you're polling our API all the time, it can lead to some unintended performance. So webhooks is a lightweight way to get there, but in terms of the actual data that's available, it's not, it is the same data that's available from the API as well as within the web app. It's just a small subset right now.
Okay. Great. So we're going to keep an eye out for the for our Q&A just to see if any last minute questions come in. But in the meantime, we do have a couple of resources that we want to share. So, of course, today was just a taste of what's possible. So if you want to learn more, you can always explore our API documentation. It's available at dev.bitly.com, which Kelsey did reference today. We also have some detailed articles in our Help Center specifically about webhooks. So if you want to learn how to configure those webhooks, we have a step-by-step guide on our Help Center. That's a short link here, bit.ly/webhookshowto. However, our Help Center is really searchable. So if you visit our knowledge base there, that's bit.ly/here to help, and you look up webhook, or webhooks, you'll be able to find lots of information. Additionally, of course, we love having these expert sessions, and we also run other further webinars for our enterprise users or any premium user who may have desire to learn more about Bitly. So you can learn all about our different webinar sessions at bit.ly/learning. You're never more than 5 working days away from training if you need it. So of course you can always contact us if you are thinking you need some help with your Bitly account or something might not be going quite right. You can always file a support ticket with us. Our support team is very responsive and very talented. So at Bitly support, that's bit.ly/supportive. You can also navigate to that as well as our webinars inside of your settings menu inside of your Bitly account. All right, so let's give it a couple of more seconds to see if we've got any extra questions, but I'm not seeing any currently in our Q&A. If you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out via our support team, or always you can check out our knowledge base. There's tons of information there. And if you're an enterprise level user, you can reach out to your account manager if you want to take the next steps in setting up webhooks. And of course, we just want to say thank you so much for attending our session today. It was really great to have everybody listening in and great questions. And I want to thank also our experts, Kelsey and Tony, who did such a great job. And so we also want to just mention that we do have a survey that you'll be routed to in your browser once it's finished, once our session is completed. So I just want to say, if you have a second, it helps us to really keep improving and make sure we're doing everything we can to provide you with what you need. So thanks again. Thanks to our hosts, our co-hosts, Kelsey and Tony. And from them and on behalf of everyone at Bitly, I want to say thank you and have a great day.